Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing about the chapter I Stand With You Against the Disorder by Jeanette Armstrong from the Module 1 Autobiographical Writings and Memoirs from Signatures Expressing the Self, 3rd semester Common English course of the University of Calicut. How signatures becomes important. Learning the same is not only for getting a summary, but also to understand the world with its diversity and all its life and its meaning, which varies from person to person. I'm quite sure that the text will transform you to more accommodative, more understanding individuals with analytical capabilities. So, moving on to today's class, as I have already mentioned, the chapter I Stand With You Against the Disorder is included in Module 1 Autobiographical Writings and Memoirs. We are familiar with the terms biography and autobiography. Then, what is a memoir? Is it the same? So, a memoir is a collection of memories that an individual writes about moments or events, both public or private, that took place in the subject's or person's life. Then, is it same biography or autobiography and a memoir? No, they are different. What is the difference? So, different from biography or autobiography, which tells the story of a life, a memoir tells the story from a life, such as touchstone events and turning points from the author's life. Since it's a memoir, it's very important to know the author very well, as the entire chapter discusses her own experiences. The author is Jeanette Armstrong, the Canadian writer. She was born in 1948 on the Okanagan Reserve in British Columbia. Okanagan is a Canadian province of British Columbia. And she was a writer, Indigenous civil rights activist, sculptor, educationist, and she was the first Native woman novelist from Canada. Again, she is an educator and a protector of the Indigenous people. Definitely, she was a professor of Indigenous Studies and Canada Research Chair in Indigenous Philosophy. Before moving on to these details, let's have a look at her major works. We cannot see a long list here, but still, she started her literary career by writing a poem on John F. Kennedy. Her major works include her first novel is Slash, and her second novel is Whispering Shadows. And Breath Tracks, which is published in 1991, is an anthology of poems published by Jeanette Armstrong. And All My Relations, an anthology of contemporary Canadian native fiction, is a collection of her short stories and 2 children's books. To know why she is included in this particular module, that is autobiographical writings and memoirs, we must get familiar with the terms like native literature, indigenous people, their culture, their life, their literature, the term aboriginal, etc. So, the significance of these terms. indigenous or native or aboriginals. The definition of indigenous is something or someone who is native to an area or who naturally belongs there. Actually, we couldn't fix a perfect term in Malayalam for indigenous. It can be Swadeshi, Tadeshi, and the definition we have already seen. Someone who is native to an area or who naturally belongs there. Usually we have indigenous persons or groups or communities. The Adivasis in Kerala is an example for indigenous community or a particular tribe. We have different tribes here. Then these people, indigenous people, the aboriginals or the natives, they are also known as first people who have the ethnic roots or the earliest non-inhabitants of an area. And they have a way of life different from those who have settled or occupied or colonized these areas. And see, any piece, any literary piece written by an indigenous person can be called indigenous literature. Here comes the significance of an author. Actually, indigenous literature, their works are about traditions, their relationship to nature, and the experienced injustice from the society and the experience they have of the injustice towards them from the society. So usually it addresses difficult topics and are often written really emotional. All in all, they give an insight into the indigenous culture and help to understand it better. Then what is the connection between Jeanette Armstrong and the term indigenous or indigenous literature or culture? The community where she belonged, the Okanagan community, is an indigenous community. She belongs to this particular community. She was, as I have already told, she was born in the Okanagan Reserve in British Columbia. Usually, indigenous tribes may not be much educated or civilized, but here the things are different. Janet Armstrong received both the traditional and formal education. And see, she was always proud of her community, their language, and its rich heritage. And through her works, she strived to alter or to change the deep-rooted prejudices and wrong notions associated with Aboriginal people or with natives. And for her, writing is a healing process which helps to cure the wounds that she experienced from the whole society. Actually, she is a representative of her community, not only her community, but all the indigenous communities. Her words are for all the indigenous communities. She believed that to bring human beings closer, we could connect at honest level between people, between sexes, races, or classes. There should not be any discrimination. And we can see her words in your textbook. To touch and understand one another is to bridge our differences, not our similarities. So it's very easy to accept a person if he or she is similar in thoughts with you. At the same time, It's very difficult to accept people with differences. So, the great thing is that we should be ready to accept persons with differences. There lies a humanity. She was very proud of the term or the concept of democracy, and she adds that, she says that if a single person is denied his or her rights, the entire democracy collapses. Then Armstrong believed that the individual and the society is strongly connected. The progress of a community or a society lies on the hands of the citizens. In her own words, however much the artist is elevated, the community alongside must be elevated, as well and must benefit as well. To society, the development always lies in the hands of the citizens who lives there. The same with the citizens also. നല്ല സൊസൈറ്റിയിലാണ് നല്ല സിറ്റിസൺസ് ഉണ്ടാവുക. Okay, Armstrong's research is on indigenous communities where she tried to revitalize the indigenous methods of knowledge documentation. And her main objective in writing was to educate young people about native culture and history. This understanding will help the world to get rid of cultural blindness. So, what is this cultural blindness? When we become culturally blind, we fail to acknowledge differences, and our own culture limits us from seeing views of other people and other cultures. We may not be able to accept other cultures, their beliefs, their customs, their traditions if we are culturally blind. So, actually, she was trying to make an awareness for the youth, for the young people, about their native culture and history. Then, something more about the work. I Stand With You Against the Disorder is an article in yesmagazine.org, which is published in November 8, 2005. The article discusses the destructive effects of global economy, and the article was adapted from Paradigm Wars: Indigenous Peoples' Resistance to Economic Globalization, edited by Jerry Manter and Victoria Telekopis. And in that work, in that article, Armstrong declares her unflinching loyalty. Unflinching means strong, not changing. Loyalty to her community, Okanagan, and all other similar indigenous communities. She's a spokesperson here. She's a representative of Okanagan community and all the indigenous communities. According to her, most of indigenous communities promote bioregionally self-sufficient economies, and they must engage to attain sustainability. And the objective of this particular chapter or the particular article actually is a declaration, her Jeanette Armstrong's declaration of solidarity against the violence of cultural imperialism. In other terms, of what is cultural imperialism? Cultural imperialism is actually the practice of promoting and imposing a particular culture usually that of a politically powerful nation over a less powerful society. For example, the superiority of white people over the others. It's a kind of cultural imperialism. So she is against it. So her writing has a strong purpose of protecting diversity by revitalizing the subcultures. So this is the introductory video. And remember, this presentation is not a replacement for your textbook. Read the textbook as many times as you can. And if you have any doubts, we'll discuss the same in our live classes. Go through the text first, then you can go through the video. Thank you all. Stay home and stay safe.